Talk a little bit about Theodore Roosevelt forming the Bull Moose Party when he couldn't get reelected, and tell us if you think that could happen in the next couple of years.
I would have said 2016 would have been a perfect opportunity, but it just seemed like the third parties couldn't get their act together then. She specifically mentioned the Bull Moose Party. That was the progressive party. That was the party that Theodore Roosevelt started after he didn't get the nomination for the Republican Party in 1912. And so him and his supporters famously stormed out of the Republican convention and they're like, we're going to start our own party. You got to have a larger-than-life, really huge star, I think, for that to happen again. And who is that today? I mean, I guess there's a couple candidates, I guess.
What's really singular about the Bull Moose example is that Theodore Roosevelt had served as president for 2 terms. He was a very popular president. And up to that point, it wasn't illegal for a president to run for a 3rd term yet. So in theory, he could have if he wanted to, but he didn't want to break the precedent set by Washington. So Taft, his hand-picked successor, goes into the presidency. And throughout his time in office, Roosevelt's really unsatisfied. He feels like he's insufficiently progressive and he's not being the fighter that Roosevelt feels should be in the office. So Roosevelt, he primaries Taft in the Republican Party. Roosevelt likely would have won without some interference, you know. He then decides to run a 3rd party campaign. So the overperformance of the Bull Moose Party has to be considered as being a former president running a 3rd party campaign, right? I think that the closest we could have gotten is if in this election cycle Trump had lost the primary. I think he probably would have run a 3rd party campaign against someone like a DeSantis, but I really don't see a likelihood of something like that going forward. But I think Trump really could have been the one.
I mean, you're seeing factions within the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm noticing there's a very clear divide with like the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party and the more, for lack of a better word, traditional Democrat. So.